Hey, everybody, welcome to Financial Fitness. It's good to be with you today and excited to be here. We've got a special guest, a good friend of mine, also a good friend of the churches here at Emmanuel Church, my dear friend, and you know her, Rachel Greene. Rachel, welcome to Financial Fitness.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's good to be here, and I've known Rachel since I've been here for about 5 years. And she's actively involved with the church, has been for a long time, and she's become no stranger to those that are at the e-store, whether people come over and buy product, to celebrate missions, and she's also no stranger to Adopt a Block. She's no stranger to the nursery team. I can go on and on, folks. She's pretty involved here at the church, and so is Karis, her wonderful daughter. And so we thought it would be great to have Rachel on with us. So thanks for taking time out of your work schedule to be with us. And so, Rachel, tell us a little bit about Rachel.
I was born and raised in the church. I've spent all of my life, I feel like, in serving in some capacity at a church somewhere. I started working in the nursery when I was probably 11 or 12, or maybe younger than that. I can't remember. I just know that I felt like I grew up in church. We were there Sunday morning, Sunday night,
You lived
Wednesday
there.
night.
Yeah.
Parents were youth pastors.
Wow,
They
okay.
were on the worship team. So we were there I grew up in church. It was home. It was a home away from home. In my teens, I feel like I strayed a little bit in trying to find myself and identifying myself separately from the Lord. Fortunately, the Lord was faithful and kept me in my youth, and I didn't stray too far because I always knew that He was my center. He was where I needed to be. My parents divorced when I was a freshman in college. That kind of rocked my world a little bit. Rocked my world a lot, actually. And I watched my mom struggle financially. And I watched the Lord show up for her consistently over and over again. Checks appearing in the mail, groceries appearing on the front step, laying hands on the heating unit and praying that the Lord would make it come back on in the middle of a blizzard and the fan comes on. And our next door neighbors are looking out their windows at us like we're crazy, but we were. I mean, the Lord provided. And I feel like my life is a testimony of the provision of the Lord. He's faithful. He always provides. He always shows up. I went into missions for a little while and lived on donor support and a stipend and donated plasma to pay for food. And I somehow managed to pay off my first car while I was a missionary. And I wasn't living in extravagance or even what some people would consider middle class standards. I was poor, but I was rich. And I learned that even when I am faithless, He is faithful. And I came back and I worked, I served, I did all the things, and I got married, and then I got pregnant with my daughter, and then I had my daughter, and my husband left. And I found myself as a single mom with a newborn unexpectedly. In that marriage, I had become a little bit less faithful with giving, with attending church. I was being pulled away, and in that finding myself single, I realized where I needed to recenter and refocus, and where my strength lied within Christ, and getting back to that. It was a hard season, a really hard season. But I learned that God always provides still, even when you mess up, even when you stray, He's still there. He's still faithful. And I learned the importance of getting a community around you and not isolating yourself. Because when you stray, sometimes you feel the shame of not wanting other people to see how far you've fallen or the condition that you're in. but community is what brought me back. So
Wow.
now I have a job that I love.
You got a great job.
More than provides
You got a great
for
job,
all
yes.
my needs. I'm able to give the way I like to give. I'm allowed to spend time with my daughter the way I need to spend time with my daughter. It's a blessing from the Lord. It's a job I prayed for. Not in the way that I thought, like I never thought I would end up in finance, but it's where the Lord saw fit to put me. And I love it. I love going to work every day. And
Wow. Wow, that is a powerful story. I know a little bit of your story, and just from my time here at Emmanuel and listening to it again, it just brings back like that little 3-letter word, wow, W-O-W, wow. That would make a great sermon by itself. And wow, thanks for telling us a little bit about you, Rachel. That by itself, folks, is inspiring, and the podcast could be done right there. But I'm going to go a little bit further. And so life after divorce and things like that. And tell me about how life is as a single parent.
that's a great question. It is nothing that I thought it would be, but I wouldn't change a thing. It's hard. It's exhausting sometimes. Sometimes you feel alone. Sometimes you feel like you're not enough. Like, God, why would you give me this responsibility? It's too much. And then my daughter looks at me with those brown eyes. And God whispers in my ear, that's why. You know, it's not about you, it's about her. And I'm equipping you, and I'm more than enough. And I'm more than able. And I'm everything that you need. So lean on me. I can give you the strength. No, you're not strong enough, but in your weakness, I'm made strong. And so, yes, it's hard, but it's amazing at the same time. I get to do life with my daughter. So, I mean, any parent, any parent knows that it's hard. And sometimes, you feel alone, even when you're married. It's not just that's not just exclusive to single parents. But it would be nice to have, someone to lean on and co-parent with. But I found that having community and creating my own village has made carrying that burden and that load so much lighter. Without my small group or, my family or the group of friends that, I serve with, I know that I can text them, I can call them, I can share when we're talking about prayer requests at small group. I get, people check in and go, hey, how's Karis doing? How are you doing? Hey, you guys are on my mind. That having a community makes it so much lighter, makes the load lighter.
Having a community that makes perfect sense. And we see at church serving all the time and involved, and Karis running around and involved and growing up, seeing her grow up and watch you parent her publicly, which is, I believe, the same way that you parent her privately, which is an amazing thing to see. I know that we've got a ton of respect for you, not just me, but other people that I've talked to on staff. You do a great job, and we're super thankful that, and I know Karis is thankful that you're her mom, right? And that's a good thing. Knowing the fact that your background and life of a single parent at the moment, how do you manage your finances as a single parent? Co-parenting is one thing, and then joint finances is another. But when it's just one, and then you're responsible for the little one, who is growing up, by the way, and right, how do you do that? What would be your, I would say, ideology for managing your finances as a single parent?
I live within my means.
Wow, folks, blockbuster there, but so true, right?
Yeah. I don't compare what we have to other
That's good.
people.
Okay.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Preach, man.
And
That's good.
living within your means is within my means is the best way that I handle my finances. The first 10% are the Lord's. That you have to be consistent in that. The Lord said, "Test me in this, and I will open the floodgates of heaven and pour out blessing upon you." And I've never gone without. We've never gone without. Karis doesn't know what it is to want.
I believe that.
She does not know what it is to want, and that is the Lord providing.
Yeah.
But she doesn't know what extravagant living is, but she knows what extravagant giving is.
Yeah.
And I asked her last night, I said, "Karis, what do you know about money? What have I taught you about money?" And she said 3 things. Actually, she said 4. The first one, save it. I'm like, yes, it went through. The second was, don't forget your taxes.
Already.
I said, "What do you mean?"
Love it.
She says, "Well, when you're buying something, you got to remember taxes are included. So you got to include that in the total." I'm like, "Okay." She said,
That's your daughter, for sure.
she said, the third thing she said was, "It's better to give than to receive."
That's great.
And that's how we live.
Well,
And then the fourth thing she said was, money doesn't make you happy. Money can't make you happy. So when your hands are loose on the funds and you give it away,
yeah.
that's where the happiness is, seeing it help someone else. So that's what my
You've done an
9-year-old, that's
amazing
what
job.
my 9-year-old told me she knows about money last night.
Wow. That is, if I'm honest, that's probably more than most adults sometimes, if we think about it, right? I'm reminded of the scripture that says, "Train a child in the way she should go, and when they're older," right? And you're doing that not just biblically and spiritually, but you're doing it financially, which is what that scripture also indicates as well. Man, that's good stuff. Man, I hope this podcast, we get thousands of views, hundreds. This is great stuff, guys. I'm excited. This is really good stuff. What role does budgeting play in your finances, right? And so, I'm a huge fan of Ramsey, drank the Kool-Aid, but also just think it's a good thing to do for the most part. What does budgeting play? What role does it play?
Yeah. Well, I know when I'll go back to when I first became a single mom. I looked at what my fixed expenses were. And then, actually, the first thing I did was I looked at what my income was and how much I was bringing in after taxes, because don't forget your taxes. And then I compared that with my fixed expenses. Those things can't be changed. Sometimes, you can call a company and negotiate your rate and all of those things, which I had done at that point, and then you look at the end and you're like, okay, well, this is what I have for food, gas, all the things that, there's you need,
Yep.
but they're not fixed expenses.
Just a question for you. For some people that may not know what a fixed expense is, what is a fixed expense?
So fixed expenses, housing,
Gotcha. Like rent, mortgage,
mortgage,
car payment.
Car payment.
Gotcha.
Yeah, things, the utilities, you've got to have electric if you're going to be in a house. You got to have.
Do you really? I mean, hey, what's wrong with? No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
If you want to be allowed to live there, you need electricity. So, those things that you have to pay, there's no way around them. Unless you want to live in your car, but you still have to pay your car payment if you want to live in your car. So, I looked at all of those things, and then I also, when my marriage ended, I was left with all of the marital debt. So I had about $22,000 in credit card debt that I had to pay down on my own. And I looked for ways. I was like, well, I could pay the minimum payment on all of these. I looked at the snowball method.
Yep.
I looked at all of, the things. And the thing that made the most sense for me was I did a debt consolidation loan. And I got all of them down into one payment. The interest was lower than the interest rate on all of the credit cards. Mm-hmm. And it was a set amount. And I looked at the payment was the same as if I had been paying the minimum payment on all of those cards. and I was able to pay more, because I was trying to pay more so I could pay them down. Because if you only make the minimum payment, you're not paying off a credit card.
You'll be in it forever.
Exactly. I'm looking at it, and it's like, if you make the minimum payment, you will have paid off this card will be paid off in 25 years. Like, that's a terrible feeling to look at and
It's
go,
a great feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. So I was like, I have to get out from underneath of this. I need this weight off my shoulder. I couldn't afford housing. I was living back at home with my child, with my parents.
Yeah.
And that was a blessing. Not everyone has that. So I want to acknowledge that the Lord provided a place for me to live while I tackled that debt problem. And I was able to get out from underneath that boulder of debt.
Can you pause right there for just a second? Yeah. That is significant that the Lord made a way for you. Once you set in your mind, sounds like that you were going to get rid of this debt. And you set as Pastor Mark tells us, like when people say the sinner's prayer, it's not the words that mean anything, it's the posture of your heart. Once your mind and heart got on the same page, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get rid of this, you gave God an opportunity to move on your situation. But okay, now you went home to save some money to pay off the debt. Great strategy and huge blessing. Sorry.
No, it's fine. And sometimes you have to humble yourself to get to that place. I was in my early 30s living at home with my parents, and that, that doesn't feel good to tell people. That's not where I pictured and envisioned myself being at that stage in my life, but that's where I was. And it was one of the greatest blessings. Karis got to grow up with her grandparents, seeing her grandparents every day. When we finally bought our home, she was like, I miss Grammy. I want to see Grammy before I go to bed. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
Right.
Like, I bought this house for us.
Right.
Sorry. Be grateful, please.
We want to go back.
But back to the budgeting question, I found a way to focus on paying down the debt and consolidated it, stopped using the credit cards. Like, you can't pay down your debt if you're continually...
Say it again. Just say it's music to my ears. Say it one more time.
Stop creating debt. Stop using your cards.
Yeah. Wonderful. Love it. I love it.
So you live within your means, So
absolutely.
You budget. I've made that a fixed expense in my mind. I had to make that payment, and then we lived on the rest. Yeah. And we made that work. Sometimes that means going to the food bank. Sometimes that means going to, accepting a box of food from Adopt-A-Block. Means going and getting secondhand clothing, taking hand-me-downs for myself and for my daughter. And it's not charity. It's just living within your means. It's, someone donated that because there was still life in it, and you get to live it out. So there's nothing wrong with that. And no one would know until I told them now on this podcast that, we bought secondhand clothes.
By the way, secondhand clothes is the thing now.
It is.
In case you were wondering. I mean, just like years ago, you used to watch, I Love Monk, and he would wipe his hands and sanitize. That's the thing now to do. So buying secondhand clothes seems to be the cool thing. But even if it's not cool, if it's saving you money and it works for you, do it. You know what I mean? And so as we wrap up, I got one other question to ask you. Any words of encouragement for single parents or people in general, families looking to improve their financial health?
Words of encouragement. You're not alone.
That's big.
You don't have to do it alone. Find your village, find your community, join a small group, get plugged in and serve. Believe it or not, like, that affects your finances. Having a team that you can rely on mentally and share that load with, that helps. Always tithe. Always tithe. That's the Lord's. And it's the only time in the Bible he says, test me in this. Yeah. And he's always faithful. That's in his nature. He's never not faithful.
Amen.
And it's better to give than to receive. So give extravagantly.
Rachel, I appreciate you coming on. And, it's funny how things work out in life. We as a society look at people for what they are or who they are at now, not knowing the backstory, the context, which makes the person who they are. While we have all these media outlets as far as social media platforms, I am a true believer in knowing the person, what got them to where they are, and what's keeping them going. And nobody's, as much as we like to say that people are born with a silver spoon in their mouth, that's not necessarily true. The finished product, God is still working on. He's still polishing. And your story is one of those powerful stories I've heard since I've been here at Emmanuel. The idea of what God has done and is doing in your life is evident to people that know you, and people that don't know you. They're probably going, who's that one? Like, what's going on there? Like, the Lord's using you in powerful ways, raising your daughter. You got, by the way, a fantastic job. And you gave God the credit. He gave it to you.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't earn it. You didn't deserve it. Gave it to you, but you're using it wisely. And that we do know. And so super proud of you that you took time off your space to come out and be on the Financial Fitness Podcast. And so thanks again for coming. And thank you for tuning in today. We really appreciate you. And we hope that something that was said today that will be used, you can use in your life. You can use whether today, tomorrow, or you can apply it when the time is right. We're big believers that God will give you what you need when you need it. And I can guarantee you something that was said today on this podcast by Rachel that will affect you, your kids, and just your thinking about money in general. Understanding that the money doesn't belong to you in the first place.
Yes.
It's all the Lord's. And when you have that mindset that you're a steward of it, watch God do things in your life. And so, so grateful that you tuned in and can't wait to see you next time. Take care.